Queen Liara stood atop the grand balcony of the palace, her glowing eyes scanning the vast city below. The city of Elara was magnificent, filled with tall spires that shimmered with alien energy and streets bustling with citizens. She had inherited the throne after her father's passing, but despite her beauty, intelligence, and grace, she felt the weight of isolation pressing down on her. The alien nobles had already made it clear they did not see her as a true queen. Her ideas of peace, diplomacy, and alliances with other species were considered foolish. Many whispered that she was weak, unfit to lead a civilization that had thrived for thousands of years through strict tradition and pride. The royal hall was silent as the ceremony began. Nobles in flowing ceremonial robes filled the room, their eyes sharp with judgment. Some sneered openly, while others hid their contempt behind polite masks. Liara's heart pounded, but she held her head high. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, yet the rejection was still bitter. Her father had always told her that strength came not only from power but also from courage and wisdom. Now, courage was all she had. "Your Majesty," intoned High Chancellor Drellan, his voice cold and precise, "the nobles wish to speak. If there are suitors who seek to honor the Queen, let them come forward." A hush fell over the hall. One by one, the nobles, proud and haughty, stepped forward, bowed superficially, and whispered polite refusals. Each rejection was sharper than the last. Some offered excuses, citing duty or obligation. Others did not even try to hide their disdain. Whispers and murmurs spread through the room like a chill wind. Liara felt her throat tighten, but she forced herself to remain composed. She could not let anger or sadness show. In her eyes, the throne had always been more than power. It was a responsibility to her people. Finally, the hall quieted as the last noble bowed and stepped back. Liara's gaze swept the room. Not one noble had shown her respect or faith. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. She felt alone, and for the first time, doubt crept into her mind. Perhaps her father had been wrong. Perhaps she truly was weak. But before despair could take hold, the doors at the far end of the hall opened. A delegation of humans entered. The aliens had always been wary of humans, an unpredictable and young species that few took seriously. They moved differently from the Alari, their bodies less refined but full of energy and determination. The humans paused as they approached the Queen, led by a man who seemed calm, even in the intimidating presence of alien royalty. He did not hesitate, did not flinch, and did not look fearful. His eyes, dark and steady, met hers with a quiet confidence that was impossible to ignore. Captain Adrian knelt before Queen Liara. The room gasped. Not in submission, not in fear, but in a gesture of respect and recognition. The nobles' whispers turned into shocked murmurs, some faces flushing with indignation. "A human dares," one noble began, but another shushed him quickly. All eyes were on Liara now, waiting to see her reaction. Liara's heartbeat quickened. She had expected fear, flattery, or deception. She had not expected sincerity. She had not expected courage. The kneeling human did not look down in servitude. He looked at her as an equal, recognizing her strength and her right to lead. Her mind raced. Who was this human, and why did he not follow the same rules as the others? Why did he not fear her position or the judgment of the nobles? "I am Captain Adrian," he said in a clear voice. "I come as a representative of my people. I kneel not because I am beneath you, but because I recognize the strength, wisdom, and courage that you embody. I offer my respect, nothing more, nothing less." The words echoed through the hall. Liara felt a warmth she had not experienced in weeks. Finally, someone saw her, not as a queen to be tested, not as a figurehead to be mocked, but as a leader to be respected. She straightened her posture, letting the energy of her presence fill the room. "Rise, Captain Adrian," she said, her voice steady and commanding. "Your gesture is understood and accepted." Adrian rose slowly, keeping his gaze steady on hers. The nobles whispered furiously, their anger and confusion clear. Some muttered that a human had no right to show such confidence, let alone before a queen. Others, younger nobles and citizens observing from the galleries, watched with fascination, curiosity, and even admiration. For the first time in her reign, Liara felt a glimmer of hope. Over the following days, Adrian remained in the palace, not as a guest, but as an observer and an advisor. He was unlike any alien noble she had encountered. He asked questions not to flatter but to understand. He suggested ideas not to challenge, but to improve. Slowly, Liara began to see that humans, though physically weaker and inexperienced in interstellar politics, had a clarity of thought and moral courage that even the most educated alien nobles lacked. Their way of seeing the world was different, but it was effective. It was honest. The nobles, however, were not pleased. They whispered behind closed doors, plotting ways to undermine the queen and discredit the human captain. They called him an interloper, a meddler, and worse, a fool. Liara knew she could not depend on humans to defend her in the political arena, but she also realized she did not need them to. Adrian's presence gave her something more valuable than loyalty. He gave her perspective, encouragement, and most importantly, confidence. She was not weak. She was a queen, and her strength came from more than tradition. It came from wisdom, courage, and compassion. One evening, as the twin suns set over the city, Liara and Adrian walked along the palace gardens. The light bathed the crystalline flowers in gold and violet. Liara spoke quietly, almost to herself. All my life, I have been told I am too weak, too different. The nobles rejected me before I could even prove myself. Adrian glanced at her, his expression calm but sincere. Strength is not measured by how many bow before you, Liara. True strength is in knowing what is right and standing by it, even when the world doubts you. You already possess that. Liara looked at him, surprised by the simple honesty of his words. No flattery, no political games, just truth. For the first time, she felt she could breathe. Perhaps her reign would not be defined by the narrow minds of the nobles, but by the courage and wisdom she had carried all along. The palace bells tolled, calling the citizens to witness the evening ceremony. Liara stepped onto the balcony once more, Adrian by her side. The humans and a few curious young nobles watched, waiting to see how she would act. She raised her hands, letting her energy radiate over the city. It was not a show of power, but a symbol of hope, of clarity, of leadership that did not rely on fear or tradition. The citizens cheered, and even some nobles could not hide a flicker of respect in their eyes. That night, Liara stood in her private chambers, gazing at the stars. She felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She knew the road ahead would be difficult. The alien nobles would continue to challenge her. Political intrigue and sabotage were inevitable. But for the first time, she did not feel alone. A human man had knelt before her without hesitation, not out of fear, but out of respect. And in doing so, he had reminded her of something she had almost forgotten. Courage and honor could cross any boundary, even that of species. And so, Queen Liara's reign began, not with the approval of the nobles, but with the quiet, unwavering respect of a human who saw her for what she truly was. The seeds of change had been planted, and neither she nor the galaxy would ever be the same. The following days in the palace were filled with activity, tension, and quiet observation. Queen Liara moved through her duties with steady composure, but the weight of the alien nobles' disapproval hung over every meeting, every council session, and every audience. They continued to challenge her, questioning her policies and subtly mocking her efforts to form alliances beyond the Elari Empire. Each word, each glance from them was a reminder of the isolation she felt. She had inherited not only a throne, but also centuries of prejudice and stubborn traditions. Adrian remained at her side, a steady presence amidst the storm. The human captain had quickly adapted to the alien environment, observing the court with sharp intelligence and asking questions that revealed his understanding of both politics and the lives of everyday citizens. He did not overstep. He did not try to dominate the proceedings. Instead, he offered insight and advice quietly, guiding the queen when she needed support and standing back when her authority was required to shine. One morning, the queen called for a council meeting to discuss trade routes with neighboring star systems. The alien nobles had resisted her proposals, claiming that alliances with humans and other species would weaken the empire. Liara entered the chamber, her robes flowing behind her, her energy markings glowing faintly, a sign of her focus and command. She felt Adrian's presence beside her, calm and reassuring as she addressed the council. "We must consider the future of our empire," Liara began. "Isolation has served us for centuries, but the galaxy is changing. We cannot thrive by rejecting every species that offers friendship or knowledge. We must adapt, or we risk stagnation." The nobles shifted uncomfortably. High Chancellor Drellan's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Your Majesty, your ideas are dangerous. We have survived by following tradition. Why should we place trust in humans or any outsiders? Their motives are unclear and their loyalty untested." Adrian stepped forward slightly, though he did not speak immediately. When he did, his voice was calm, measured, and surprisingly persuasive. "Tradition is valuable, Chancellor, but it should not blind you. I speak not as a conqueror, nor as a ruler here, but as someone who has seen civilizations rise and fall. Alliances are not weakness, they are strength. Respect and cooperation can achieve what rigid pride cannot." Some of the younger nobles murmured in agreement, their eyes widening at the clarity and logic in his words. The older nobles scoffed, whispering criticisms behind their hands, but a seed of doubt had been planted. Liara watched Adrian carefully. His presence and words were changing the atmosphere in the room. It was subtle, but it was real. After the meeting, Liara and Adrian walked through the palace gardens. The alien flora glowed softly under the twin suns, casting long shadows that danced across the crystalline paths. "They will never accept you fully," Liara said quietly. "Not yet. Even if they see your logic, their pride will resist." Adrian nodded. "Change is never immediate. The important thing is that some are listening. That is enough to start." Liara paused, staring at the intricate flowers. "Sometimes I wonder if my father underestimated how much courage this throne would demand. I thought leadership was about decisions, strategy, and guidance. But it is also about patience, and about standing firm when everyone doubts you." "You are not alone," Adrian said softly. "I may not be able to change them all, but I can help you see your path clearly, and I will support you when you do." In the following weeks, Liara and Adrian worked together to inspect the cities and territories of the empire. They visited industrial hubs where Elari engineers managed energy grids, trade ports where alien merchants bartered with off-world traders, and the agricultural sectors that fed millions. At each stop, Adrian asked thoughtful questions, learning about Elari systems while offering human strategies that could increase efficiency or safety. Liara began to notice something extraordinary. Citizens who once felt forgotten or ignored by the nobles started whispering about her differently. They saw a queen who listened, who cared, and who took bold steps to ensure their well-being. The nobles, however, were growing restless. They spread rumors that Liara was favoring humans over her own people, and that Adrian's influence was weakening her judgment. One evening, as the queen reviewed reports in her private chambers, a message arrived from High Chancellor Drellan. It was formal but threatening. He demanded that she cease consulting with humans and warned that continued cooperation would be viewed as treason against the empire. Liara felt a mixture of anger and determination. She knew that the council could remove her from power if she appeared weak or indecisive. She turned to Adrian, whose expression was calm as always. "They are trying to intimidate me," she said. "They want to see fear or hesitation." Adrian placed a hand on a console beside her. "Then do not give them the satisfaction. Fear is exactly what they want. Stand firm. Show them that respect and courage matter more than tradition and prejudice." The next council session was tense. Drellin and several older nobles arrived with scowls, expecting confrontation. Liara entered with Adrian by her side, and the room seemed to hold its breath. She did not hesitate. She presented her plan for a new trade alliance with a neighboring species, highlighting both security benefits and opportunities for technological exchange. Her voice was steady, her energy glowing faintly as she gestured to holographic charts. When Drellin attempted to interrupt, Adrian spoke. "With all due respect, Chancellor, the Queen's plan is logical. It strengthens the Empire, protects its citizens, and preserves resources. Opposition without reason is not leadership, it is fear." A ripple ran through the council chamber. Some of the younger nobles glanced at each other, nodding silently. Others looked embarrassed. The older nobles' whispers grew louder, but the momentum was shifting. Liara felt a surge of hope. She had expected resistance, but she had not expected her vision to begin taking root so quickly. After the council, Liara and Adrian returned to the gardens. The twin suns had set, and the city glowed with thousands of lights. Citizens and palace guards passed quietly, some pausing to bow or offer words of encouragement. Liara felt a sense of connection she had never known before. "I am beginning to see the impact we can have," she said. "Even small changes can inspire trust." Adrian smiled. "Trust is the foundation of leadership, and courage is the foundation of trust. You have both, Liara. That is why they will eventually follow you, even if reluctantly at first." But the nobles were not finished. One night, a covert message reached Liara from an unknown source. It warned that Drellin and his allies were planning to sabotage one of the new trade missions, hoping to discredit her and show that humans could not be trusted. Liara's heart raced. The success of her policies and the lives of her citizens were at stake. She and Adrian began preparing quietly, studying maps, trade logs, and security protocols. They trained the palace guards, reinforced communications, and devised contingency plans. Adrian's knowledge of human strategy proved invaluable. "They expect us to act predictably," he said, "but we will act smartly. They cannot win if we anticipate their moves." The day of the trade mission arrived. Liara watched from the command deck as ships carrying supplies and diplomats prepared to depart. Her energy hummed with focus and determination. Adrian stood beside her, calm and steady, as he reviewed the final checklists. The mission was critical, not only for resources but also for proving that her alliances could succeed. The sabotage attempt came as expected. A small group of nobles tried to intercept the cargo ships using outdated patrols and misinformation. But Liara and Adrian had prepared. Guards were in place, routes had been changed, and defensive energy fields had been activated. The interception failed completely, leaving the nobles' plans exposed. Word of the failure spread quickly. Some nobles were humiliated, while others were forced to admit that Liara's judgment and Adrian's guidance had prevented a disaster. Citizens began praising the Queen openly, whispering admiration for her courage and vision. Even a few older nobles who had resisted her now looked on with cautious respect. That evening, Liara stood in the palace gardens once more, watching the stars shimmer above the city. The challenge was far from over, but for the first time she felt a real sense of momentum. Adrian joined her silently, looking at the same vast expanse of sky. "They will continue to resist," he said softly. "But every victory, no matter how small, proves that courage and wisdom matter more than tradition and fear." Liara nodded. "And every time they fail, the citizens see it too. They will remember who protected them and who truly leads with honor." For the first time, Liara felt that she was not merely surviving her reign, she was beginning to shape it. And with a human man at her side, showing courage without fear, she knew that the galaxy was beginning to see a new kind of strength, one that transcended species, tradition, and prejudice. The seeds of change had grown stronger, and the Queen's journey was far from over. But now, she had allies, strategy, and the knowledge that courage could challenge even the most rigid hearts. She was not alone. She was a queen, and she was ready. The palace was alive with quiet tension as Queen Liara prepared for the council meeting that could determine the future of her reign. Word of the failed sabotage and the successful trade mission had spread across the city, but the older nobles were not ready to concede. They still whispered among themselves, plotting to undermine her authority and challenge her policies. Yet there was a noticeable difference this time. Some younger nobles and citizens had begun to stand with her, inspired by her courage and the success she had achieved despite constant opposition. Liara stood in her chambers, reviewing the reports one last time. Her energy shimmered faintly, a reflection of her focus and determination. Adrian leaned against the console beside her, his calm presence a steadying force. "They will come at you hard," he said softly. "Expect attempts to intimidate or provoke you. But remember, your strength is in your wisdom, your courage, and your integrity." Liara nodded. "I know. I cannot let them see fear or hesitation. The Empire must see that I lead for the people, not for tradition or pride alone." The council chamber filled quickly. Nobles entered with stiff expressions, their robes flowing behind them as they took their places. High Chancellor Drellin, the most vocal critic, sat at the head of the chamber, his eyes cold and calculating. Some nobles whispered among themselves, clearly expecting conflict. Others looked uneasy, unsure how to challenge the Queen after recent events. Liara entered, her posture confident, her gaze steady. Adrian followed quietly, standing just behind her. The chamber fell silent as she approached the central platform. Citizens and palace guards lined the galleries, observing the meeting, their eyes filled with anticipation. "I called this council to address the future of our empire," Liara began, her voice clear and commanding. "We face a choice: to cling to outdated traditions and risk stagnation, or to embrace knowledge, alliances, and courage to secure a stronger future for all our citizens." Drellin rose immediately, his voice sharp. "Your Majesty, you have disregarded the advice of experienced nobles. You risk the Empire's stability by placing trust in humans and outsiders. Your policies are reckless." Liara took a deep breath. She could feel the energy of the room, the tension thick and heavy. "Reckless is refusing to adapt while the galaxy evolves," she said steadily. "Courage is standing by what is right, even when others doubt you. Our empire has survived for millennia not by resisting change, but by learning, adapting, and protecting our people." Some nobles exchanged uncertain glances. Murmurs ran through the room, and for the first time, Liara noticed hesitant nods from younger members who had been quietly observing. Adrian stepped forward, his presence calm yet firm. "With all due respect, Chancellor," he said, "the Queen's plan is not reckless. It strengthens the empire, secures resources, and ensures safety. Fear of change is natural, but leadership requires wisdom to see beyond fear." The room fell silent. Many nobles were taken aback, not by his words alone, but by the confidence and logic with which he spoke. Liara felt a surge of determination. This was her moment, not to demand respect, but to earn it by showing courage, insight, and vision. She raised her hands, projecting energy over the council chamber, not as a threat, but as a symbol of focus and clarity. Holographic charts appeared in the air, showing trade routes, defense grids, and plans for cooperation with neighboring species. Liara explained each point, answering questions with precision and clarity. Every objection from the nobles was met not with anger, but with reason and careful explanation. By the end of the session, the chamber's atmosphere had shifted. Drellin and his closest allies still looked displeased, but their power to intimidate had weakened. Some younger nobles approached Liara cautiously, asking questions and seeking clarification, their curiosity now fueled by genuine respect. Citizens watching from the galleries began whispering words of approval, noting the queen's courage and insight. After the council, Liara and Adrian walked through the palace gardens. The twin moons had risen, casting silver light over the crystalline flowers and winding paths. The air was calm, and for the first time in weeks, Liara felt a sense of quiet triumph. "It is not over," she said softly. "The older nobles will continue to resist, and there will be challenges we cannot foresee." Adrian smiled, his gaze steady on her. "No, it is not over. But each victory, each moment of clarity, strengthens your position. They cannot undo what you have accomplished today, and they cannot erase the respect you have earned from your people." The next weeks were filled with demonstrations of her growing influence. Trade missions continued successfully, security improved across the empire, and citizens openly praised their queen. Liara noticed subtle changes even within the nobles. Some who had opposed her began to acknowledge her decisions quietly, admitting in private that her judgment had prevented disasters and improved the lives of their citizens. One day, an urgent message arrived. A distant star system, a potential ally, was facing a crisis. A natural disaster threatened to destroy key cities. Liara knew that intervention was both a moral responsibility and a political test. She assembled her council with Adrian by her side and planned a mission to provide aid. The nobles protested. "It is too risky," one said. "You cannot extend resources outside our borders. It is dangerous and unnecessary." Liara's response was calm, unwavering. "Leadership is not measured by convenience but by action. We have the means to help, and it is the right thing to do. Our citizens and allies will remember who acted with courage and who hid behind fear." The mission was a success. Relief ships reached the planet in time, saving countless lives and earning the gratitude of the neighboring civilization. News of the Queen's decisive action spread throughout the galaxy. Even the most stubborn nobles could not deny her effectiveness, and some reluctantly offered support, recognizing that leadership required courage, wisdom, and action, not mere adherence to tradition. A formal assembly was held to acknowledge the success of the mission. Citizens from across the empire attended, and for the first time the hall was filled with genuine admiration. Liara stood at the center, radiant and calm. Adrian knelt before her once again, but this time not in submission, but in a gesture of respect for her accomplishments and the strength she had shown. The nobles watched, and many realized that the queen's power was not only legitimate but deserved. Liara's energy radiated over the assembly, a symbol of hope, courage, and leadership. She spoke to the gathered citizens and nobles alike. "Our strength lies not in fear, pride, or tradition alone. It lies in our courage, our wisdom, and our willingness to stand together in the face of challenges. Today, we have proven that unity, respect, and courage can overcome even the deepest prejudice." Some of the older nobles, humbled by her words and actions, approached to offer formal acknowledgement of her authority. Younger nobles and citizens cheered quietly, inspired by the display of leadership and moral strength. Liara smiled, feeling a sense of fulfillment she had never known before. She had proven herself not by the approval of the few, but by the respect of many. That night, Liara stood on the palace balcony, overlooking the city that now seemed brighter, filled with citizens who trusted her and believed in her vision. Adrian joined her silently, standing beside her as the twin moons reflected in the sky. "You have changed the empire," Adrian said softly. "Your courage and wisdom have inspired your people. The nobles may resist at first, but they will follow because they see truth and strength." Liara turned to him, her eyes glowing softly. and you have reminded me that courage can come from any species. Strength is not about size, tradition, or heritage. It is about action, morality, and honor. Adrian smiled. Exactly. Humanity stands not above or below, but alongside those who fight for what is right. And together, we can accomplish far more than either of us could alone. Liara looked at the stars, feeling a deep sense of hope and purpose. The challenges were far from over, but she was no longer alone. She had allies, a plan, and the respect of her citizens. The Elari Empire was entering a new era, one defined not by fear, prejudice, or rigid tradition, but by courage, wisdom, and the power of unity. The queen turned to Adrian, her expression one of quiet gratitude. We have proven today that leadership is not about being feared or admired by a few, but about inspiring and protecting all. And in that, we have succeeded. Adrian nodded, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the city below. Yes, Liara, and this is only the beginning. Together, we will ensure that the empire not only survives but thrives. As the twin moons shone brightly over the palace, Liara felt a sense of peace and triumph. The nobles who had rejected her would never forget the courage she displayed. The citizens who had doubted her would now see her as a true leader. And the galaxy, with all its uncertainty and challenges, was a place where courage, respect, and action could shape the future. For the first time since her father's passing, Liara allowed herself to truly believe in the power of her reign. She was no longer a queen alone in her palace, doubted by the nobles and challenged by tradition. She was a queen with vision, courage, and allies who saw her strength. And standing beside her, a human man had shown that even across the vast expanse of the galaxy, respect, courage, and honor could unite species, inspire hearts, and change the course of history. Liara smiled, feeling the promise of the future. The Empire had a queen worthy of its people, and the stars above promised new adventures, challenges, and victories. Together, they would face them all, undaunted, courageous, and united.